There she is with her award. Miss Tanya. Tanya is a practitioner of Chinese medicine and the proprietor of Lemon Balm Clinic in Katoomba. Her passion is to help women transform their health naturally using acupuncture, Chinese herbs, whole food counseling, and Qigong. Her holistic approach to health can help you relax, release stress, pain, and re-energize. And I believe you've got some slides that you'd like to share.
Thank
Welcome.
You see those?
Yes.
Awesome. So I don't know why it sometimes puts, oh, there it is. All these technology things. So thank you. Yes, we're going to talk about self-care tonight, but from a Chinese medicine perspective, which is theoretically it's about the 5 elements, but practically it's about the seasons, because each of the elements corresponds with a different season. So I'm looking at reframing it to be seasonal self-care. And it's all about Yang Shen, which is nourishing life. So how we can look after ourselves, because it's much easier to prevent illness than it is to treat illness. So if we can be looking after ourselves appropriately, there's a lot less to deal with later. So starting in the springtime is the wood element, and the wood element relates to the liver and the gallbladder. So being of a spring nature, it's all about growth and renewal and change and flexibility. So the key word for self-care in regard to the liver or in regard to springtime is all about movement. Yeah, so making sure that the body's moving. The liver and the gallbladder in Chinese medicine is responsible for the free flow of energy through the body. And energy won't flow freely when we're in a state of tension. So breathing and relaxing makes that space for the energy to flow. So part of the Yang Shen, part of looking after yourself, is making sure you're moving regularly, whether it's walking or dancing or doing Qigong or doing yoga or going swimming. The liver is also very responsible for converting the sunshine into vitamin D. So trying to do that movement out in the sunshine like we did on the weekend is a wonderful thing to do. Okay, there's a body clock system in Chinese medicine, and every 2-hour period of the day relates to a different organ system. So the time related to liver and gallbladder is between 11 p.m. and 3 a.m. So this is the most restorative sleep you can get. So it's really interesting that while the energy of the liver and gallbladder is about movement, the timing of liver and gallbladder is all about sleep. So it's about balancing that yin and yang, balancing movement and balancing rest. So looking after liver and gallbladder is really about making sure you're getting enough sleep, going to bed at a reasonable hour. And so it's not just the quantity of sleep, it's the quality of the sleep. And the quality of the sleep is affected by the time we go to bed. And from a dietary perspective, the flavor related to the liver and gallbladder is the sour flavor. So a bit of lemon water, adding vinegar to our leafy greens, having fermented foods, those spring greens, all of the bok choys and the choy sums and the chard and all of those lovely leafy greens help to nourish the liver because they're iron-rich foods. Dandelion tea is a wonderful way of detoxing the liver, and those iron-rich foods like goji berries or the leafy greens help to nourish the liver. So it's that difference between cleansing it and supporting it. So any questions about the liver?
I do. So if you are prone to then wake up between liver is 1 and 3 a.m., does that mean that your liver is stuffed or stagnant, or hopefully just
Absolutely.
stagnant and not stuffed.
Absolutely. So those people that my clients, when they come in and they say, I always wake up at about 1:30, or I always wake up at 2:00, it's like, okay, what's happening with the liver? So it can be physical. So are you moving? Are you moving regularly? Is there stagnation in the body? Is there tightness, tension in the body? Are you stressed? Because of course, the first thing stress does is tense us up. And when we're tense, that liver energy can't flow. The emotion related to the liver is anger, irritability, and frustration. So more often than not, we'll wake up at that time when we're feeling frustrated about something. And the other thing that the liver and gallbladder do is they organize. It's all about organizing and strategizing and planning. So whenever life is changing, whenever there's that spring energy of growth or renewal or change, first thing that kicks in is the liver going, okay, how do I work with this? And that's when you wake up at 1 in the morning or 2 in the morning and your brain ticks over and you're going, how do I reorganize this and plan for that and strategize for the other? So
Okay.
then it's about putting into place those tools of, before you go to bed, do a brain dump. Have your little notepad beside your bed so that things are on paper in black and white and not going round and round and round in circles in your head.
Cool. Thank you.
All good? Okay. So after our springtime, and I'm rushing through this because I know it's more about conversation at the end. So following from spring, we have our summer energy, and our summer energy is the fire energy. And the fire energy is one of the only elements that actually has 4 organ systems connected to it. All of the other ones have 2. So the 4 organ systems related to fire and summer is the heart and the heart protector. It's the small intestine and the sanjiao, which sanjiao literally means the 3 heaters, but it's often defined as the fascia. So it's the body's protector. So the heart and small intestine are one pairing, the heart protector and the body's protector, the sanjiao, are the other pairing. So this is all about the energy of summer. So this is the most yang season, the most active season. It's all about energy and passion and warmth. It's working from the heart. So it's all about our purpose and our joy. It's about gratitude. It's about loving what we do and doing what we love. It's about connection and it's about community. So the time of day related to the heart is between 11 and 1. So when you have the ability to schedule your day in your own way, that's a wonderful time to organize meetings, because then you can have that heart connection with people. Small intestine time is between 1 and 3. So that's the good time to have lunch. And they say to have breakfast like a king, lunch like a prince, and dinner like a pauper. So having a decent lunch will help you get through the day. Spending 10-15 minutes relaxing after lunch to allow you to digest. And we're now past midday, so we're now going into more of the yin time of day. So everything sort of from midnight up to midday is building in yang, and then after midday to midnight, the yang is decreasing and the yin is increasing. So doing less and being more. So slowing down after that, between that 1 and 3 o'clock. The flavor related to the fire energy is the bitter flavor, because the bitter we say it dries and it drains. It's about draining that heat out of the body. So it's actually a flavor we don't include enough in our diets. It's the bitter greens, the rockets and the radicchios and the endives that are really important, and they're so good for heart health, but we tend to avoid that bitter flavor. So it's important to start adding a little bit more to your meals. So heart and small intestine time is between 11 and 3, and then heart protector and sanjiao is between 7 p.m. and 11 p.m. So the heart protector time is that time to have a light dinner. So eating earlier is better. So more around the sort of 6:30, 7 o'clock, an early dinner, and a really light dinner, so that you're not spending the whole evening digesting, but you can spend the evening actually resting when you go to bed. It's a good time for creativity. So great time for me to sit down and crochet, or for people to draw, or paint, or write, or just finding some creative outlet. A good time to have fun and to play, you know, in the good old days, long before my time, but you often see the movies where in the evenings people would, you know, dance around or sing around a piano, or, you know, it's a time to get together and have fun, which we just don't do anymore. You know, we sort of get onto our computers and we just scroll, or our phones, and just scroll and scroll. So actually getting up and doing something that again brings joy to your heart is helps support that heart energy. And between 9 and 11 is the best time to start getting ready for bed. So starting to wind down to go to bed so that you can be asleep during that liver time that's between 11 and 3. And we sleep well when our heart is calm. You know, when our heart is agitated is when we're struggling to fall asleep, or when we're waking up through the night, whether it's during liver time, or we'll find out soon the lung time. But keeping that heart calm, so doing what we love, sharing the love, one of the last things to do before you go to bed, one of the best last things to do before you get is go to bed, is write a gratitude journal, so that you can think about all the things that have gone well during the day or during the week, rather than all the things you're worried about. So spreading the love, finding inspiration, finding joy in the little things. Self-care is self-love. You know, looking after yourself actually is an act of self-love. Yeah, any questions about the fire element? All making sense? Okay. So from the fire, from the summer, we actually move into the earth element, and the earth is a bit of a funny element. They all have funny aspects to them, but the earth element is often called late summer, but it's also the transitions between seasons. Earth wisdom is all about nourishing ourselves, but it's not just about the food that we eat. It's how we nourish all of our senses. It's how we nourish our sense of sight, our sense of smell, our sense of hearing, our sense of touch. You know, looking around the room that you're in, and Isabel would be very familiar with this sort of thing, is from a feng shui perspective, when you look around your room, what are you seeing? You know, when you see clutter, when you see things that are broken or torn or mess, it's hard to be calm. And when we're in a state of fight and flight, when we're in a state of anxiety or irritation, we're not digesting, whether it's digesting food or digesting life. So this is all about grounding ourselves. It's about stability. It's about nourishment. And of course, the timing of the spleen and stomach is between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m., which is why breakfast like a king. Breakfast really is the most important meal of the day, because when people get up and have a cup of coffee and then race off to work, you're running on adrenaline. All you're running on is stimulants. And when you're running on adrenaline, ultimately you end up with adrenal burnout. So getting up in the morning and filling your tank means that you've got energy, you've got fuel to get through your day that isn't just pure adrenaline energy. So having a lovely, warm, cooked breakfast, most nourishing thing you can do for your system. The spleen is responsible for our thoughts, which is why the emotion related to the spleen is worry. We start to ruminate, we start to go overthink everything, which is why that morning time between 9 and 11 is a really good time to work on those things you've really got to think about. You know, if you've got a lot of hard work to do it in the morning, when your thought process, when the energy is strongest in your thought processes. And of course, when it comes to coffee, morning tea time after breakfast is the best time to have your coffee, not first thing in the morning. The flavor related to the earth element is the sweet flavor. And we're talking about the sweet vegetables. We're talking about the naturally sweet, the natural sweetness of grains and sweet vegetables, which nourish the digestive system, as opposed to the sweetness of chocolate and sugar and cakes, which deplete our system. We're drained of nutrients when we go into too many empty sweets. Fire nourishes the earth. So gratitude is actually a reminder that there is sweetness in life. And I've heard it said that a lot of people with diabetes are searching for that sweetness in life. So looking at, how can we be sweet to ourselves? So self-care for the earth element is grounding, putting our feet on the earth, spending time in nature, gardening, playing with chickens. Earth people tend to nurture others. So with any of these elements, people have a tendency to be primarily one of these. People have a tendency to be earth people or wood people or fire people. And earth people are like Mother Earth. They want to look after everybody, but they tend to look after everybody else and forget to look after themselves. And we can't give to others from an empty cup. So, the good old airplane model of, put the oxygen mask on yourself first, because if you're worn out, how can you look after anybody else? So nourishing all the senses, we talked about that. Breakfast like a king, lunch like a prince, dinner like a pauper. And it's basically so that we can fill our tank in the morning, spend the day using up that energy, rather than filling our tanks up at night and just having it sit there and then wonder why we've put on weight, or why we're uncomfortable and struggling with reflux, or waking up in the middle of the night feeling uncomfortable or nauseous, which I know I do if I've eaten too much at dinner time. When it comes to eating, of course, eating seasonally. We're coming into autumn now, so really important to start warming up our meals, having, warmer breakfasts, more cooked foods, eating, not so much the watermelons now, but, adding a bit more ginger or cinnamon into our cooking, eating locally. Well, the weather up here is different to the weather in Sydney, is different to the weather in Queensland, it's different to the weather in Tassie. So working out what's, appropriate for our season in the mountains. And eating to your constitution as well. So if you have a tendency to feel the cold, like I do, I'm always cold, I'll still have ginger tea even in the middle of summer. But if you have a tendency to be always hot, then keeping yourself cool even through the winter means not overdoing it on those hot spices. So a cup of peppermint tea will cool you down, but it's still that warm tea that keeps your system warm. Eating slowly and mindfully. So grace is always a good reminder for being mindful as we do things. And without distraction. So of course, not eating while we're watching telly or while we're at our computer or while we're scrolling through Facebook. It's not mindfulness, but just sitting. When you're eating, we eat. Any questions about the earth element?
Yes. Yes, I have questions.
Please ask away.
If you wake up, if you get up, say at 5 a.m., should you wait until 7 a.m. to eat? For example. Because I get up between 5 and 5:30. And then I usually just do like a warm, like I do my lemon water with ginger and turmeric and blah, 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 everything in the morning. And but I'm just wondering, should I wait until 7 to have anything to eat? Would that be better?
The ideal time to eat is between 7 and 9.
Okay.
But I know that when if I have to be in clinic by 7, I'm not going to go to clinic on an empty stomach. So I'll have breakfast rather at 6:30.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of working in with, we can't always follow the ideal because of our lifestyle.
If we have a choice, if we can.
Exactly. Yeah. If we have a choice, we get up, and we'll talk about best time for getting up next. But if we have a choice following that, well, essentially what's called the perfect day plan. You know, there's a fabulous book by Joss Sawyer called The Perfect Day Plan, which talks about how to work through all of these time zones.
Oh, thank you.
So yes, the ideal time to have breakfast is between 7 and 9, but that doesn't mean if you're up and you need to get somewhere, you're going to go on an empty stomach. So if that's when you need to have your breakfast, have your breakfast. Again, but the more mindful you are with good intention, everything's going to be good.
Oh, thank you.
So we're now currently entering the metal season, so autumn. The weather is cooling down, certainly this week it is. And the metal element relates to the lungs and the large intestine. So the most important take home from the metal element is to breathe. Because so often when we're rushing through life, we're breathing very shallowly. And when we breathe shallowly, we're holding ourselves in fight and flight mode. Whereas when we breathe deeply, we're switching off that sympathetic nervous system and switching on the parasympathetic nervous system. So as we breathe deeply, it means we can actually let go. You know, when you take a breath in, when you're breathing out, you can't sort of hold on to tension when you're breathing out. You sort of almost have to let go as you breathe out. So letting go is making room for new things to come in. You know, we let go through autumn so that we can rest in winter, so that there's then room for new stuff to come in the springtime. So the timing of autumn is, or the metal element is between 3 and 5 is the lung energy. So just like if you're waking between 1 and 3, there's usually some level of stress going on, some level of planning, strategizing, organizing going on. But when you wake between 3 and 5, it's possible that there's some level of sadness or grief happening, that the lungs might be a bit out of sorts. I know that, you know, if I've got a bit of a cough or something, I'll usually start coughing at about 3:30 in the morning. You know, that's when I wake up coughing. If there's a lot of phlegm in your lungs, that's often the time when you'll wake up with a problem. So nourishing the lungs either at a physical level or at an emotional level is something to look at when you've got that sort of 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. wake up. And it's about nourishing the yin of the body, because it's that breathing, it's that just being. You know, we're not in that doing phase of the wood energy or the doing phase of the fire energy. We're starting to come down now. We're starting to just come into ourselves, contract, the energy is contracting and it's turning within. The time of the large intestine is between 5 and 7. So this is the ideal time to wake up. You know, as the sun is rising, it's time for us to rise. We get up, we start the day with a lovely glass of warm water. That glass of warm water will often help move the bowels. It's a good time to meditate because that's all about that deep breathing. It's a great time to do some stretching. So to sit down, you know, wake up, get up and meditate, get up and walk around the block, or do your aerobics or your yoga or whatever it is you want to do, and then sit down and have some breakfast. The flavor related to the metal element is the pungent flavor. So this is where the onions and the leeks and the spring onions and the chives and all of those allium family foods come in. Fresh ginger is also quite pungent, or the wild peppermint, quite a pungent flavor because it disperses. So just as the lung energy is about contracting, we've got a food that disperses. So it's balancing. So when you've got a cough or when you're coming down with a cold or flu, spring onion soup is one of the first recipes that's in the Materia Medica for I'm coming down with a cold, what should I do? Hoe into the spring onions. So adding spring onions or leeks, chives onto your whatever you're having. So if, for example, you're having congee for breakfast, a lovely rice porridge, little bit of miso paste in there and spring onions on the top, lovely and dispersing for the lungs. And if you've got coming down with a bit of a cold, if it's a cold, so if you've got the chills, if you've got the body aches, if your nose is dripping clear, that's where the ginger and the cinnamon comes in. If you've got a hot cold, so if you've got sore throat, more green snottiness, that's where you need that cooling and dispersing energy of the peppermint and honeysuckle and I can't remember the English name for the other one. So it's looking at warming and cooling, but still pungent. Yangshen is swimming. So our lung meridian comes from our collarbone all the way down to our thumb. Large intestine meridian starts on our index finger and comes all the way up to the nose. So swimming is a great way of really getting that lung energy exercised, motivated. So people who have asthma, who have lung tendencies, I highly recommend swimming, or at least pretending you're swimming, you know, doing our qigong with our one of our movements. Long, slow, deep belly breaths, of course, to calm the nervous system, and body brushing, because the lungs rule the skin. So dry body brushing is a fabulous way of stimulating the skin, helping to do some of that detox, which is what the lungs and the large intestine do. You know, they're all about letting go, detoxing. Any questions about the metal element? No, all good. Okay, so the final one is the water element, which is winter. So this, of course, is the most yin, the most quiet season. So just like summer is about, you know, it's expansive and it's yang and it's getting outside and being in the sunshine and moving and picnics and barbecues, water and water element, the winter time, the yin time, it's all about coming in. It's about being more indoors, being more recluse, turning within, introspection, listening to your inner voice, your inner wisdom, your intuition. And you can really only do that when you stop, when you actually stop to listen, when you slow down and you turn within. So the water element rules the kidneys and the bladder, and it's all about growth and development, our reproductive cycles. Women run in 7-year cycles, men tend to run in 8-year cycles, which is why it's at 49 that we start to go into menopause. So between 49 and 56 is when we start going into menopause. Then 56 onwards is our second spring. So bladder time is 3 to 5. So that's when we get our 3:30itis and we start to wind down. So that's a really good time to just do our filing, menial tasks, things we don't have to think about. You know, we've done all of our hard thinking work in the morning. In the afternoon, we just do our filing, answer emails, do things that don't require too much thought. And then between 5 and 7 is really the time to switch off. You know, we should be leaving work and heading home and slowing down and going with the flow. The flavor related to the water element is the salty flavor. And we're talking good quality salt here. So Celtic sea salt, Himalayan salt, tamari, soy sauce, miso, gamagio, not so much the Saxa. So if you're craving a bit of salty flavor, maybe going for some tamari roasted sesame seeds rather than a packet of Pringles, which only has about 30% potato. So hydrating, of course, is important. So making sure you're drinking good quality water, filtered water, PFAS-less water. Having plenty of wet, juicy foods. So sometimes when we drink too much water, it's more about flushing the body. Whereas when we're having more wet foods like soups or casseroles or stews, which are the best foods for winter, that's when we tend to hydrate more. Stewed fruits, in the winter time. All the dark foods nourish the kidneys as well. So the blueberries and the walnuts, seaweeds, black beans, kidney beans, those dark colors nourish the kidney energy. Keeping your feet warm, because the feet is where the sole of your feet is where the kidney meridian begins. So really important in the winter time that you're wandering around in your Uggies or your slippers, and keeping your lower back warm. So wearing singlets or Spencers or something that keep the back warm. All those young girls with their backs and bellies exposed in the middle of winter and then wondering why they have so much period pain. It's all the cold that's gotten into their lower bellies. Any questions about the water element? No? Okay.
I have a general question about flavors.
Yes.
So if you are, so two things then. If you are craving a specific salty, sweet, blah, 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 or if you are repulsed by one, does it mean that if you're craving something that you actually, so if you're craving salty things, that you need to then pay attention to your bladder and your kidneys and this element?
Absolutely.
Or it doesn't work like
No,
that?
it does. It very much
Okay.
so. So the more you're craving that salty flavor, it's the body knows that the salty flavor nourishes our adrenals, because kidney and bladder is the adrenals as well. So the body knows that this is what nourishes the adrenals. So it's sort of saying, I need something salty. But if you're feeding it the crappy salt, you're not nourishing the system, so it's going to crave more salt. And it's the same with sweet flavor. When we crave sweet flavors, if we actually have a piece of chocolate or a piece of cake or something, we don't feel satisfied. We then crave more sweets because the body's going, well, you actually haven't nourished the sweetness I'm looking for. Whereas if you were to, have a pumpkin pie or have a pumpkin soup or have, sweet potato, those little sweet potato toasts or something, your body would go, that's what I need. That's the sweet that's actually nourishing me.
Or if you are craving sweet, if you deal with I don't know, like that's dealing with people or nourishing people and things like that, right? Is summer? Can't remember now.
If
That was
you're
only
craving
two seasons ago. But sorry, so adding those relationships or adding that grounding or adding all of that in, should that then without actually eating something different change that craving or not really?
At one level it
do you know
will.
what I mean? Like, can you change the sorry.
Yeah, sorry, the internet reception is a bit bad, so it's breaking up every so often. If you're craving sweet, your body is craving nourishment at some level. So you do need to nourish it at the physical level. So it will be good to have a piece of fruit or a piece of roast pumpkin or or including some sweet vegetables in each of your meals. However, you also need to nourish at the mental, emotional level. So with each of these systems, you've got to work at the physical level and the mental and the emotional and the spiritual, because we're all one. If all we deal with is at the physical, then our mental, emotional stuff, it will feed into, but it's also going to start craving. Our mind will crave nourishment of some description, whether it's craving time alone or whether it's craving company or whether it's craving, those sorts of things, movement. We need to work at all of those levels. Does that answer the question?
Yep, for sure.
But yes, if you're really craving sugar and all you do is go, oh, I'm gonna, change up the pictures on my wall, your body's still going, yeah, but I'm not nourished. I'm not nourished. That needs nourishment as well.
Cool.
So I've created a little ebook that's available on my website called The 5 Elements of Holistic Self-Care. So it talks a little bit about all of the correspondences between each of the elements, and the seasons and the emotions and the foods and the flavors, and the little things you can do to look after yourself. And I've got a series of seasonal self-care workshops coming up. So we've done the fire element in January. We're doing the metal element, the autumn lungs, large intestine, coming up at the end of March. It's only 2-hour workshops on a Saturday afternoon, but we talk about a lot more about dietary issues. We learn a little bit of Qigong, a little bit of movement for each of these. And we talk about all the self-care, the other aspects of self-care that we can do for ourselves. So in March, we're looking at the metal element. In May, we're going to look at food as medicine, so the earth element. In July, we'll be looking at kidney and bladder adrenals. And in September, we'll be looking at liver and gallbladder and all the spring energy. So if anyone's interested in coming along to any of those, please have a look at the QR codes or get in touch with me.
That's very generous of you, Tanya. Thank you. I was just wondering, Tanya, for the earth element, you know how you got the yin and the yang earth? Can you separate different foods to, or different actions to the different earths, like the yang and the yin? Or is you just have it like a general earth?
Sorry, can you say that again, because you froze up.
So for the earth, you know how you got the yin and the yang?
Yep.
So is there different foods that corresponds to each one for the earth?
No.
They're both
It's the same.
yeah.
So the yin and the yang elements, how each element has liver and gallbladder, spleen and stomach, lung and large intestine. The flavor that looks after those is the same flavor. The yin element is about storage. So the liver stores the blood, the spleen stores the essence of food, the heart stores things, and the yang elements are the hollow the hollow organs. So the stomach receives the food that we eat. The stomach then separates the pure and the impure, and the stomach sends the pure essence of food that we've eaten up to the spleen, and the stuff that we don't need is sent down to the large intestine. The large intestine then separates, or sends down to the small intestine. That then separates more pure and impure. So at each level, the body is taking the essence of things or moving things on.
Okay, thank you.